Satan.
You know, I've been on YouTube for over 6 years now, and I like to think I've certainly changed over this time period. I'm not the same YouTuber who guest starred on Bob Show's channel back in 2016. My editing's improved.
So many kids watch these movies over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
My style has changed, and I've branched out to try out different things. Some of them worked out, others not so much. I've noticed I don't really get all that angry anymore either. I mean, I do from time to time, but it's nowhere near as extreme as back in 2017 or whatever. I know there's some fans who prefer that nostalgic critic-esque stuff, but I'm personally really happy with the way I make my videos now. And look at how far I've come. I finally hit the 5,000 subscribers milestone. That's a big deal for YouTube. And with this summer comes the most ambitious project I've ever attempted in my entire life. To be honest with you guys, I don't think anything can take me down from this. I honestly just don't see anything making me super angry ever again. Oh my god, this movie sucks so bad I want to explode! All Those Go to Heaven 2 is ass. It sucks. It's awful. I am absolutely blown away by how truly awful just about everything in this movie is. I thought I'd seen the worst of these Don Bluth sequels. I thought it couldn't get any worse than the Land for Time sequels. But then I thought it couldn't get any worse than The Secret of NIMH 2. But no! Somehow we live in a universe where there is a worse Don Bluth sequel than The Secret of NIMH 2. And you want to know the worst thing about this? It's not even close. Like, this piece of shit blows that piece of shit out of the fucking sky! I know there's people who thought I was being too hard on the first movie, almost to the point of insanity, but this makes the first movie look like a masterpiece. I guess for what it's worth, at least it's not The Secret of NIMH 2, which shits all over a great movie. Now we just have a rather mediocre movie being ruined by an absolute fucking disaster. Ugh, I don't even know where to begin with how bad this movie is. So I guess I'll start with the good stuff first because trust me, there's not a lot here. I know this one thing is gonna sound really weird considering what I said about the first movie. The songs in this movie are actually pretty good. Yeah, I know. What the fuck? I mean, they're nothing special, but I actually find these songs pretty entertaining and enjoyable. They actually contribute to the story and character motivations. Charlie's got a new singing voice actor and he sounds like he actually gives a shit. Like, seriously, this is a huge upgrade. Again, how weird is it that I actually like the songs in a Don Bluth sequel, but not the songs from the original? Then again, some of the Land for Time sequels had good songs, so I guess it's not that far out there. The backgrounds are nice. On their own, I mean. I'll go more into the animation later because, ooh, it's no bueno. But on their own, they really give this movie its own unique look. It's almost like a mosaic at times. Itchy becomes best boy in this movie. I'll talk more about this as I get into the characters of this movie, but there's a reason why he's on my new YouTube banner. I'll say this now though, next to the villain Red, Itchy is practically the only likable character in this movie. I'm dead serious when I say that. He was pretty much the voice of reason in the last movie, and while he didn't start off that great, you always felt like his heart was in the right place. And by the time his big speech came in the last movie, that's when he became best boy. I meant what I said when I said he was the best comic relief character in any Don Bluth movie, because he's somehow the only one that never got ruined later. Side note, I should probably bring this up now. By the time of this video, I've actually never seen The Christmas Carol or the TV show, so I don't know if Itchy gets ruined in either of those. I'll get to them eventually, but for now, Itchy is still best boy, so just thought I'd clear that up in case he sucks later down the line. Okay? Red is a pretty fun villain. He's nothing amazing, and I do kind of wish he was more like the demon from the last movie, but yeah, I get it. This one's more kid-friendly, so I guess we can't have everything. Like a good sequel! That's it. That's really all the good things in this movie. Let's tear this shit apart. Good lord, where do we begin? How about that ugly as hell Blu-ray art?
You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby... Oh my goodness!
I actually don't know where to start, so I guess we'll just do it from start to finish like we used to. So the movie literally begins with Carface calling hell. Yeah, because heaven would have a payphone to hell. Carface turned his clock back at the end of the last movie, so he should be back on Earth, but fuck it. That's literally the weakest plot hole in this movie. So Annabelle is giving medals out to the best angels, and Carface gets one because he's been playing the game. Meanwhile, Charlie has yet to receive a medal because he hates being in heaven and doesn't want to live there anymore. Shortly afterwards, Charlie hears about new arrivals and is hoping that Itchy will be one of them. Yeah, because that's a great thing to do to your best friend. Hope he dies. Anyway, we get a fat joke because those are always great. And of course, Itchy finally arrives in heaven. It turns out he choked on a chicken bone, and we never hear about Anna Marie. Which, if we're being honest, is actually a good thing. Mainly because this horrible movie cannot tarnish Judith Barzi's final character. Speaking of Itchy, you know how this movie is actually based in the modern day? Or, well, modern for 1996? Meanwhile, the last movie was based in 1939. And yet, Itchy just died. That means it took Itchy over 50 years to die. 50?! Like, did anyone not notice that major oversight while working on this movie? I know it sounds like a small thing, but they seriously couldn't have this movie be based like 10 years later or something? We couldn't have this movie be based in a post-World War II America, or at least the 50s? You know, at a time period where Christian values were pretty much everywhere? Maybe take the opportunity to actually explore these values and what they mean to people, since heaven is a big deal in this movie? Oh, but then we wouldn't get to have our Elvis impersonator, now would we? I'm just saying it sounds like a missed opportunity, and on top of that, you've just created another plot hole in this franchise. That's like 2 in 10 minutes. Like, what the fuck? It seriously feels like the people behind this movie didn't even watch the first one. Say what you will about the Land for Time sequels or Timmy to the Rescue, but at least the first movie did happen for both of those. This is completely disconnected in terms of continuity, except for the fact that the characters know each other, but that's literally it. Nobody brings up Carface killing Charlie. Nobody brings up the casinos or Anna Marie, which again is actually a good thing. King Gator, again also a good thing. Charlie's stunt to go back to Earth. As far as we know, the first movie isn't even canon.
It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It never happened.
I mean, this is All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, isn't it? Shouldn't this pick up where the last film left off? The Land for Time 2 did that. Timmy to the Rescue did that. Why is this movie doing absolutely nothing to carry on the story in any meaningful way? Charlie feels like he hasn't changed at all since what happened with Anna Marie. In the first movie, he was a cut-loose, fun-loving guy who wasn't afraid to live on the edge. And in this movie, he's a cut-loose, fun-loving guy who isn't afraid to live on the edge. So his whole entire arc about him learning to care about other people and put their needs first, and that heart-to-heart with Itchy just didn't affect him at all? Yeah, okay. So Carface steals Gabrielle's horn and it accidentally falls down to Earth. We saw earlier that humans are actually in this heaven? So was there really no one guarding this sacred shit? Seriously, there's not a single guard protecting this incredibly important horn. Like, at the very least, have the guards get caught up in the song and be distracted while Carface grabs it. This is heaven! Fucking heaven! But whatever, the horn falls to Earth and lands in San Francisco. San Francisco, motherfucker! You know, I guess there is one advantage to not watching the first movie, because now we can ignore that one line about heaven always knowing about what's gonna happen no matter what. No surprises or anything, remember that? Oh, of course you don't, because you clearly didn't watch it. Annabelle should have known about the attempt before it even happened. Do you guys see now why a line like that is so stupid? So Annabelle asked for someone to go down to San Francisco to retrieve the horn. And yet despite all of the qualified people to go, she chooses Charlie. Yeah, granted he does ask her if he can go, but still, the fact is she said yes, when she had no reason to. She of all people should know that Charlie is not trustworthy since, you know, she got duped by him. Despite knowing everything that's gonna happen before it happens. No surprises, right? I'm never getting over that. I don't care how much it annoys people like Michelle here. That line should have halted the entirety of the first movie in its tracks. But okay, forgetting the first movie, because this one did already, she still shouldn't trust Charlie with this. The movie literally started with an award ceremony awarding the best dogs, and Charlie was the only dog that didn't get one. And yet she lets Charlie because, what, he asked? Sorry, but no. This horn is apparently super important, despite not having any guards at all, and yet she's gonna trust the one dog that is yet to prove himself? And again, we're forgetting the first movie, so Charlie saving Anna Marie doesn't count. Oh, you just don't get it, Razor. Charlie is supposed to learn a lesson in this movie. He's the main character, and he has to get to Earth somehow. It sounds to me like you just don't understand how movies work. Excuse me, asshole, but I'm all for Charlie going back to Earth in this movie. After being in heaven for over 50 years... 50?! I can understand why he, of all people, would be bored of it. Even taking the first movie into consideration, which we're not, him learning to care about Anna Marie didn't exactly take away his love of the high life. Itchy wanted to leave town and go start somewhere fresh, while Charlie wanted to stay behind and create another casino. So even if we do take the first movie into account, which we're not, this actually makes sense in terms of Charlie's character. Heaven would honestly be more like hell for him when you really think about it. Charlie in this movie actually reminds me a lot of Wreck-It Ralph. You know, before they made him a creep. So I'm just going to talk about Ralph from the first movie, okay? Just like Charlie, Ralph felt like he didn't belong in his game and wanted to find somewhere where he belonged. But unlike Charlie, Ralph wasn't asked by anyone to go anywhere, he left voluntarily. In the world of Wreck-It Ralph, this was considered as going turbo, a reference to a previous video game character named Turbo who left their game, causing his original game and someone else's to get shut down permanently. In the world of Wreck-It Ralph, it's considered a bad thing to just abandon your game like that, and when Ralph left, the consequences were felt. His game was marked out of order and was about to be unplugged, which would have caused the entire world to be deleted. Ralph's entire character arc revolves around the consequences of his actions and what he does to the people around him. Felix, the townsfolk, and later Penelope all suffer from Ralph's attempts to just prove himself as a hero. But with all that being said, you get where Ralph is coming from. For starters, he was never planning on leaving forever. He was gonna come back. He just got sidetracked by the virus he accidentally let loose on the arcade. On top of that, we actually see that Ralph is actually pretty miserable in his game. He lives in a pile of bricks, and the townsfolk treat him pretty unfairly, often getting mad at him for destroying their home despite that being a huge part of the game. There was a sense of hypocrisy there with them celebrating Felix, but not him, simply because he's the bad guy of the game. Ralph never wanted to hurt anyone, he just wanted some respect, and you, the audience, completely understand and side with him. But that still doesn't justify the consequences. That quote, "I'm bad and that's good, I'll never be good and that's not bad, because there's no one I'd rather be than me," suddenly has a lot more meaning to it. Ralph realizing that for the greater good, he had to accept his role. But the role he plays in the game doesn't have to define him because his new friendship with Penelope proves that he's not so bad after all. Boy, I hope they don't ruin that by turning Ralph into a creepy stalker in the future. Thank goodness that never happened. Now compare all of this to Charlie, who's a pretentious cuck who doesn't care about anyone but himself and doesn't care about the consequences until the plot just demands him to. Again, Annabelle has no reason to trust him with this very important mission other than the fact that he's the main character and he's got a lesson to learn. You wanna know why Ralph worked and Charlie doesn't? Because you understand where Ralph is coming from, and it was his choice to leave, meaning that everything that happened and could have happened is entirely his fault. His arc was believable because he made it himself. Writing a story needs to be like a river. It needs to flow properly from point A to point B. Everything in it needs to make logical sense. Otherwise, it just comes across as forced, like how the water would have to force its way around or even through a rock or tree or something. Annabelle is only choosing Charlie to go because he's the main character, when logically it makes no sense to. And no, having Itchy go along with Charlie to watch over him doesn't help out because Itchy is literally brand new and also hasn't proven himself. Not to mention it's Itchy, and Itchy has never been able to keep Charlie from doing something stupid thus far. But Annabelle makes him invisible. He can't interact with anybody or party, so she clearly knows what she's doing, Razor. Oh, does she now? Well then answer me this, Skippy. When Charlie goes to meet Red, who not only can see him, but also offers him a collar that will make him solid again, then let me ask you something. What the fuck is Annabelle doing? She's watching Charlie like a hawk. And yet she doesn't just say, "Hey Charlie, that is literally Satan's cat. Only Satan's cat would have stuff like that. Get the fuck out of Dodge!" Does she not have a reel on him or something? Can she not just bring him back whenever she wants? Apparently so, because she does at the end of the movie, but what's keeping her now? I guess the plot. Charlie's gotta learn a lesson, so I guess Annabelle's just gonna fuck right off. This is what I'm talking about. There are actual idiots out there that will literally defend bad writing like this tooth and nail because they don't understand that in order to be good movies, movies need plots that make logical fucking sense. Having their character be an idiot just because we gotta have a story happen is terrible fucking writing. It's one thing if a character screws up through ignorance of something, but in Annabelle's case, she's literally defying common sense just so the story will happen. You may think this is a small thing, but no. Annabelle is watching Charlie the entire time he fucks around on Earth and just watches, I guess. Keep in mind that without that horn, the gates of heaven cannot open. New souls cannot come into heaven. There are legitimate stakes here, and yet Annabelle isn't doing her fucking job. At one point in the movie, Charlie has the horn, but then literally throws it in the ocean, and Annabelle's just like, "Oh, what a shame. Charlie, I expected better of you. Like, bitch, fire him! Bring him back and send someone else! You're only making this mess worse by letting him continue to do this! In the last movie, Charlie was officially still alive, so it made sense why Annabelle couldn't do anything about it. But here, there's no excuse. Annabelle is literally the worst person at her job!
Bring back the horn, Charles. Otherwise, there'll be heaven to pay.
Boo! So Charlie is sent down to Earth with Itchy, but because he's invisible, he can't interact with anyone or anything. During this time, he sees Sasha, who is pretty much just an Adam Sandler bitch. Why? Because their romance is pretty much akin to that of an Adam Sandler romance. You'll see. I know I said in the beginning of this video I like the songs in this movie, but if I had to pick, honestly, this would be the weakest one. Just isn't that fun to listen to, and frankly could have been cut out of the movie and not much would have been missed. So after the song, Carface comes up to Charlie and wait a fuck! Annabelle is watching Charlie like a hawk, and yet she doesn't notice Carface? You know, Carface, the most reformed angel in heaven? She doesn't notice who is essentially her star pupil down on Earth where he shouldn't be? You are terrible at everything you do! So Carface tells Charlie about the collars that'll make him solid again, and while I'm still mad at Annabelle for not doing anything about this, ask yourself this one thing. Shouldn't Charlie see the red flags right away? No pun intended? Carface can see Charlie and Itchy because he's an angel too, I get that, but how does Red see them? Well, we find out later it's because he's Satan's cat, but wouldn't Charlie and Itchy notice that? I mean, Charlie is this streetwise guy who loves running around and living on the edge and has had multiple run-ins with the law and shit. You'd figure he alone would at least have some questions as to how this random guy he just met is able to see him when no one else can. On top of that, you have Carface being the one who introduces them. Hey Charlie, I don't know if you remember this. I mean, it has been about 50 years. 50! So allow me to remind you that Carface fucking killed you! And then, he tried to do it again! Twice! Even pretending the first movie never happened, Charlie still knows the kind of person that Carface is and shouldn't trust him. But he's so down bad for the Adam Sandler bitch that he completely forgets all about common sense. Charlie B barking? More like Charlie S barking. For simp! Even Itchy sees the red flags and tries everything to keep Charlie from putting on the collar, but to no avail because, again, Charlie's an absolute dumbass in this movie. Oh, but don't worry. He gets stupider. So after they leave, Red and Carface have their song number, It Feels So Good to Be Bad, and yeah, this is actually the best song in the movie. Red's not like a super complex villain or anything, just kind of like a typical Saturday morning villain where he just wants to rule over things because he's literally Satan's cat, but at least he's entertaining throughout the whole movie, and plus his voice actor, George Hearn, sounds like he's having a lot of fun with the role. So after getting the collar and watching it disappear every once in a while, good work, animators. Charlie and Itchy head back to the bar to try and woo Sasha. And it goes about as well as you'd think.
Now, where were... Huh?
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So, you figure Charlie, being the upstanding guy he became in the last movie, you'd figure he'd take no for an answer, get over himself, and move on to other things, right? Ha! Fuck you! Don't forget, the first movie never happened. So let's just have Charlie follow the girl home, because that's not a creepy thing to do at all. Sure, he's bringing her the food she left behind, but still, he doesn't know her. He's only motivated by one thing. And let me tell you something, guys. It certainly ain't Christian. So as it turns out, Sasha has a kid named David who ran away from home. And because they're angels, Charlie and Itchy can actually speak to him.
What did he do? Follow you home?
What? I'll talk more about David later, but yeah, he kind of sucks too. We also find out he's really into magic, so Charlie has to prove to him that he's an angel.
One miracle coming up.
And that's sexual assault. I could just end the review right here, but we've still got like half a movie left. Pretty weird how these two end up together in the end, considering Charlie followed her home and then basically assaulted her. This is exactly like an Adam Sandler romance. In some Adam Sandler movies, like Bedtime Stories or Pixels, the character Adam plays is often a huge dick. The woman made to be the love interest hates his fucking guts because, as I said before, he's a huge dick. But then, out of nowhere, Adam's character will either do something nice or say something nice, and suddenly, she's head over heels for him. Like the flip of a hat. It's gross, it's forced, it's weird, and that's exactly what happens in this movie. Charlie decides he's gonna help David with his magic act, so that way he doesn't have to go home. Despite the magic act failing later in the movie, Sasha is moved by this one nice thing, and boom, they're in love. What a load of bullshit. I think the Pepe Le Pew cartoons are more romantic.
You can't take him home?
I have to go back. And just when I finally found someone special.
What? You mean to tell me the whole time you've been going around gambling and risking your life and getting thrown in the pound, all this time you've just been looking for a bitch all along? You had one! And puppies too! Maybe. We can't 100% verify, but it wouldn't surprise me. You're seriously gonna tell me these two never hooked up? Seriously? This whole romance is just forced and gross, and it feels like they're only getting together because that's just expected in these kinds of films. Sure, the song they sing is nice, but the context behind it is just bonkers. I mean, give Timmy to the rescue credit. When Timmy and Jenny got together in the end, it was still forced and stupid, but at least Timmy was a nice guy. This just feels wrong. It just sucks how this was a really common trend in this time period. I'm glad we don't see it as much as we used to, and we can see men and women just be on screen, be equals, and it not be romantic, but still, I just thought this needed to be said. But while all that's going on, you're probably wondering about that horn, right? Well, it turns out that a police officer found the horn and decided to take it to the police station. Seeing the opportunity to get it back, Charlie sneaks into the station. For some reason, he decides to not just take off his collar, which would make him invisible, and make this shit a lot easier. Believe me, this is where Charlie just becomes an absolute brain-dead moron. So he goes into the Lost and Found, but finds that he can't get it through the gate. Now, I should mention this beforehand, this is Gabriel's horn. This horn also has the ability to open any gate. Let me repeat that for those in the back. This horn also has the ability to open any gate. So instead of waiting for the officer to leave the room, blow the horn, and then open the gate, instead, this genius decides to bring the others into the station, get caught up in a bunch of cheap, childish slapstick that goes on for way too long, and a police chase that was just completely unnecessary because this idiot couldn't just open a gate with a horn that opens all gates! 6 minutes. 6 minutes in this hour and 20-minute movie, including credits. It doesn't sound very long, but it feels like an eternity. The animation in this movie isn't even good enough to make the slapstick work. It's just so slow and unimaginative. Tom and Jerry blew this movie out of the water over 50 years ago. There are animation errors all over this movie. The color palette is dull, the character scaling is always changing between shots. Sometimes the movie will forget what constitutes as a background, and you'll have characters who are supposed to be in one place end up somewhere they shouldn't be. How did Red get into that cell with David? Even the collars! Yeah, take a shot every time the collars just aren't there, despite them being necessary to the plot. I'd forgive once or twice, but no, it's quite a lot in this movie. The backgrounds are fine on their own, but when meshed with the characters in the foreground, it just looks so cheap. Just look at that! It looks so awful! I know it may sound like I'm being real harsh on this movie, like, oh, Razor, come on! Clearly the movie didn't have that big of a budget. You're really gonna crack down that hard on a direct-to-video sequel? And normally you'd be right. But you're not, because this isn't a direct-to-video sequel. This saw a theatrical release. This movie was on the same screen as movies like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. I'm sorry if this sounds mean, but the people behind this movie put it on the same pedestal as those movies. There's a fine line between a theatrical animated movie and a direct-to-video animated movie. But this movie was released in theaters, therefore, it shows that it wanted to be judged on that level. With all that being said, though, I am willing to give this movie the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the animation team was told this was going to be a direct-to-video release, but then the studio MGM decided to put it in theaters at the last possible second. Something they would definitely come to regret. While I couldn't find a budget anywhere for this movie, it apparently had the worst opening weekend for an animated movie, playing in over 2,000 theaters. Up until Delgo came out in 2008. Delgo! One of the biggest animated bombs in history. Oh shit! Still, even by direct-to-video quality, it's still pretty mediocre. It really feels like this movie was just rushed out to try and cash in on the direct-to-video train that Disney just got started with the Aladdin sequels. I mean, seriously, this came out 7 years after the first movie did. Who in 1996 wanted another All Dogs Go to Heaven movie? I ask you. Before we forget though, I should probably mention David's parents since they were in the police station at the time, but then just conveniently weren't there anymore when shit hit the fan, because if they were there, then maybe we'd actually see them interact once before the ending. Yeah, David's backstory sucks. He ran away from home because his father got remarried, and now they're about to have another child, but it's just so bare-boned. They never actually dive into it at all, and we never actually see how his life was before he ran away. Apparently having a stepmom is a big problem for David. That would mean that he was really close to his real mom, right? Only brought up once. And we never even get a name! We don't see any flashbacks or get any exposition about it or anything. It's the most flat, boring, and uninteresting plotline in this entire movie. And its resolution at the end is so forced, lame, cheesy, and just plain uninspired. Like, David made a big deal about his stepmom wanting him to call her mom, which honestly is kind of a shitty thing for her to do. But in the end, he just calls her mom and doesn't seem to have a problem with that anymore. Kids do not just flip on a dime like this. They are messy, stubborn little shits, and David should not be an exception. So Charlie decides to take David to his magic show and puts the horn in the lobster cage. Annabelle sees this, and again, just doesn't do anything about it. I mean, it's not like she's the leader of dog heaven or... Oh, wait a minute! So David pulls off a magic show, and again, the song is actually pretty good. I guess I do like that the magic show does fail in the end. I don't know, most movies probably would have had it be successful, so having him fail in the end because he's just a kid competing against a bunch of adults who would have been doing this a lot longer does feel a bit more realistic. Although I gotta say, did the animators really have to draw these frames like this? So after the failed magic show, Charlie convinces David to go back home. We get that song with Sasha, but then the collars suddenly wear off. Huh, so for once, when they disappear, it actually makes sense for them to. Huh, go figure. So it turns out the collars that Red gave Charlie and Itchy were only temporary, and Charlie, wanting to take David home, and also to go get some, goes to get another one. And just when you thought this guy couldn't get any more stupid, any more irredeemable, Charlie decides in order to get the collar, he offers Gabrielle's horn. Yes, you heard me. It's already bad enough that he doesn't question how Red can see him, but he also decides to trade the horn? And for what? One sappy kid and a piece of ass? This is our hero. He's trading the entirety of heaven for one kid and a piece of ass? I mean, I'd do it for just the ass, but that wouldn't exactly make me a likable main character. If there was ever a time for Annabelle to step in and just say no, now would be a good time. But no, Red gives Charlie another collar and then reveals himself.
Tricked me.
No fucking shit, you idiots! Even Itchy realizes just how majorly you fucked up. Again, Itchy is the most likable character. That is ridiculous. So Carface kidnaps David to force Charlie to bring the horn to Red. But wait, doesn't the collar electrocute Charlie anyway? Is kidnapping David really even that necessary? How did Carface even find them anyway? Who am I kidding? This is chicken feed compared to what I've seen in this movie so far. So Charlie brings the horn to Red, who is now on Alcatraz Island, and Red blows the horn, sucking all the dogs out of heaven. Which I don't think would work. I mean, all it does is open doors. It never forced people or dogs to go through them. This is pretty convoluted the more you think about it. Why not just have Red's minions invade heaven or something? That would make for a far more interesting and imaginative climax instead of just throwing all the dogs into jail cells.
Charles, what have you done?
You're not exactly innocent in this situation either, Annabelle. Sure, Charlie did give away the horn just to save a single kid, but you chose him! You let him come to Earth and let him do whatever he wanted. You're a dumbass! So Charlie, finally realizing just how bad he's fucked up, decides to go and fight Red. Oh, so after everything in this movie, being fooled by Red, falling in love with this one dog, Sasha, and bonding with Anna Marie, David, it looks like Charlie has finally learned to look past himself and start caring about other people. Are you butt-fucking me right now? You ignored the entirety of the first movie just to have Charlie undergo the same exact character arc he learned in the first movie, only worse! Don't get me wrong, the first movie is an inconsistent mess with multiple story arcs that don't get the proper development they deserve, but you at least believe Charlie changed by the end of the movie. But here, what made him suddenly care about heaven? About Annabelle? Because he was perfectly fine with trading the horn not even 10 minutes ago. And no, him being lied to by Red doesn't change that. He was still willing to give up that horn just for one kid and a piece of ass. Con or no con, he still sold everyone out. And now he suddenly cares? What a load of ass. What a terrible main character. I know him being unlikable was the point, but it's just so hard to side with him in this movie at all. In the first movie, the stakes were relatively low, with the only one at risk being Charlie, Itchy, and Anna Marie. That's it. When Charlie acted like a dick, he wasn't affecting that many people. Not to mention the worst he really did was treat Itchy like shit, but he was later called out on that. He wasn't damning all of heaven with his actions. The stakes are just too high to forgive him for this. This wasn't just a mistake that went too far like with Ralph. Charlie did everything in his power to make this happen. It's too late. There's no redeeming him, but, oh, this is a dumb kid's movie and he's gonna get redeemed, isn't he? So Charlie and the others go in to fight Red and try to take the horn back.
Itchy, help us!
Wait a minute, Itchy never got another collar. So how can David and Sasha see him? How do they know he's there? So Charlie is able to blow the horn, save all the angels, and Red is sent back to hell because that's what the horn does too, I guess. Even though Red blew it earlier and nothing bad happened. You know what, there's like 10 minutes of this movie and just... frankly, I'm just exhausted, so let's just wrap this up.
Hello. Double chili cat burger with onions and pickles.
You just defeated Satan, and that's what you have to say about it. You know, it's Charlie Sheen who replaced Burt Reynolds in this movie. And it came out in 1996. About 2 years later is when it was reported that Charlie had started his drug abuse. How much do you want to bet that this is what caused it? Him having to sit through this embarrassment of a script, then living through the trauma of being in All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. Oh my god, you guys, this was it. This was the moment when his life began to go down the drain. We cracked the code, guys! We figured it out! Everything wrong with Charlie Sheen all began with All Dogs Go to Heaven 2! It makes so much sense now! Okay, all jokes aside, I'm ready for this movie to end. So Annabelle finally decides to pick up Charlie and Itchy, but before they return to heaven, Annabelle decides to let Charlie stay on Earth because he deserves a second chance. Yeah, maybe in the same way the Nazis deserve a second chance, or the KKK. Are you out of your fucking mind? You're gonna reward him for almost destroying all of heaven? Are you seriously forgetting this was all his fault? Actually, I take it back. It's your fault, you stupid bitch! And I'm not calling you a bitch because you're a female dog. You know what I meant, bitch! And as for Itchy, again, he proves to be the smartest character in this movie. He decides to stay in heaven and no longer have anything to do with Charlie. Good fucking boy! Like I said, the one smart thing that's been done in this whole movie that wasn't from the villains. Jesus H. Christ. So yeah, David goes home to his parents, David adopts Charlie and Sasha, and the two gets together, which makes my blood boil, and that's the end of the movie, and oh my god, now I want to fucking die. Oh my god! This movie fucking sucked. Hard! It's so awful. This movie was so bad that it actually makes me want to kiss the ass of Timmy to the Rescue and apologize to it for being so harsh. Actually, no, I take it back. It makes me want to kiss the ass of the first movie and apologize to it for being so harsh. I know I was mean to the first movie, but this makes the first movie feel like it's a top tier Don Bluth movie. As a matter of fact, it makes the first movie feel like the Prince of Egypt in comparison. It's trash. It's embarrassing for everyone involved. The animation is cheap and rushed beyond belief. The fact that these people seriously believed this was on par with Disney 2D animation at its prime is laughable. The characters are, for the most part, either completely irredeemable bastards, absolute brain-dead morons, or are just so damn flat there's nothing to them, with only the villains and Itchy being in the okay territory. But for this movie, being okay is on par with being godly. The story is stupid. The songs are actually pretty decent, to be frank. Thematic consistency, plot consistency, well, I surefire never heard of those things, and neither has this movie. It's not just a terrible movie, it's a terrible sequel. It never once acknowledges the original movie in any significant way. It's almost like it's embarrassed to be a sequel to that movie. Well, I'm pretty sure the feeling would be mutual. This movie is utter sinful trash. And if you ask me, this is the worst Don Bluth sequel so far. Again, keep this in mind, I haven't seen The Christmas Carol or The Show yet, so I can't speak on those yet. But as for this movie, every Land Before Time sequel, including Wisdom Among Friends and Timmy to the Rescue, are all significantly better than this was. Bar none! Oh, there. I got angry again. Just like the good old days. Ooh, it felt good. Ooh, baby, I miss this. Ooh, I should really get back to watching bad movies again. Ooh, I wonder what I'm reviewing next, however. Oh, god damn it, that show's fantastic!
I'm all the sins that you can't confess. I'm just your ghost if we're not undressed.